Good afternoon. My name's Brian, and I'm what you call an overlander. And basically, what an overlander is someone who goes on very long journeys, usually multiple states, countries, which my dogs and I have done 16 countries in 31 states in the last 2 years. And you live in your rig. You live off of what you carry in your rig, and you try to do as much of it as possible, off road, off the beaten path, not on main highways, none of that. And so we've been doing it for 2 years. Started last year with a trip up to Alaska, and then from Alaska went all the way from Prudhoe Bay, Alaska to Ushuaia, Tierra del Fuego, Argentina. And the reason I'm making this video is because I've met so many people who want to overland, but they see all of these crazy, rich, expensive overland rigs, and they don't think they can afford it, because really, who's got, an extra $150,000 to throw down on, some, crazy camper truck? And so I just wanted to share my experience with you. The first rig we tried was an RV. It was about a 21-footer, and it was an incredibly horrible experience. A, you can't go off-road. B, even driving down the highway, the damn things fall apart, and you get your cabinet doors falling off, and your microwave door flying open, and the little glass plate shooting out and breaking all over the floor. And, you got to spend a lot of time, putting that damn house back together after, a couple 100-mile trip down the freeway. They also suck because if you go in a big urban environment, you have nowhere to park. Just absolutely got nowhere to park. You got to go out of town, and if you got a tow vehicle, you got to get your tow vehicle out so you can go into town. And we thought that was one of the most horrendous experiences we have ever had. And I'm sorry, when I say we, I am referring to me and my two doggos. And these two doggos are Charlie and Finn. And so those two dogs have been to 16 countries and 31 states with me. And so it doesn't have to be crazy expensive. The second vehicle we tried was a leisure van. Oh my God, that was even worse because, you can't go off-road. Now, the advantages to a leisure van, unless you've got one that's four-wheel drive, which they get really, really pricey. But the advantage with a leisure van is if you're in an urban area, you can park in a normal parking spot and, crash for the night. And, if nobody knows you're there, then, nobody knows you're there. I guess if you have loud night terrors, somebody might find out you're there, but, just, take some sleeping pills or something. And so the third vehicle we tried was a little RV called, a Denali. And we had that up in Alaska in 2019, and it was a pretty fun vehicle. It was a really fun vehicle. But it was nothing like my last two vehicles. The next vehicle I had was a 2000 Toyota Tacoma. I purchased it with over 100,000 miles, and unfortunately I had to leave it in Brazil because of COVID. They just stopped shipping, and when we could finally get out after 3.5 months, I just, no longer worth the bother, and it's much harder to arrange the shipping and everything from here. Didn't want to pay storage fees at the port, whatever. But that brings me to one critical thing about overlanding. One of the most important tools you can have as an overlander is a good, reliable base. And I got to tell you, that's why I love the Toyotas, especially the earlier models. That Toyota Tundra, the 2000, my dogs and I drove all over Alaska. And we drove it all the way up to Prudhoe Bay, and that's the rig that we took down. We did a lot of Western Canada. We did much of the Western United States, including a lot of the Colorado Rockies. We did most of the states in Mexico. And so we went down, the west coast of Mexico to the bottom, came back up the east coast, and then we cut back down through the center of Mexico. And so we've done a lot of driving, and of course we did Central America, and then we did most of South America until, of course, COVID hit and it became difficult to cross borders. But that said, when we flew out of Brazil finally, we went to Miami and I bought a 2003 Toyota Tundra Access Cab. I like this truck more than the Tundra. It's reliable. The only three things I've had to do on it since I bought it for $3,800, which is really a steal, is fixing the shit I break, like 3 wheel bearings and a knock sensor, an O2 sensor, and new spark plugs. Not a huge cost, although when you start buying sensors for Toyotas, it can start adding up, and wheel bearings can too because you have to have them pressed in. But another key thing about overlanding is you should have reasonably competent mechanical skills, because chances are you're going to break down, and as we have, chances are you're going to break down in the middle of absolutely nowhere with no one around, and you're about 30 miles out, from the nearest town. And, that's happened to us a couple of times. Fortunately, it was nothing, severe, and we were able to fix it and move on. But I just wanted to show you our current rig, which is, similar to the Tundra we had to leave in Brazil, just to illustrate the point that does not have to be a bank breaking hobby. I suppose if you could call living for 2 years in your truck traveling the Western Hemisphere a hobby, which I suppose it's more of a lifestyle. And so let me now show you my truck. Right, we're back. And that is our 2003 Toyota Tundra Access Cab. And I just love this truck. Like I said previously, it's important to have a good base, but we're going to point out some of the things that we've added to it to make our lives far more comfortable. That aren't really all that expensive. Maybe one of the more expensive items you'll buy is we just went with an ARE topper. We got the side flip-up windows. We went ahead and we got the insulated topper, which is very nice, and it's got these rooftop LED strip lights, and so it's an excellent place to sleep and an excellent place to hide out when you're stuck in a really nasty storm. That'll be your most significant investment. You might be able to find them used, but you got to make sure you get the right fit. We paid I think $4,500 for the topper, and that was more expensive than the $3,800 truck. Of course, the truck didn't look like this when I got it, but we've been in some pretty crazy places, doing some pretty crazy things. This is really important, this canopy here, because, it gives you cover while you're, sitting down eating dinner or you're working on your computer. It's also important because when you're sleeping, if you're in a tropical environment, there's a nice, breeze, and it's raining at the same time, and you're in the back of your truck, and it can get stuffy, and so it's really nice to have a side window open. And what the canopy does is it protects you so that you're not getting water inside your bed and sleeping area, which is pretty highly uncomfortable at night. And this is just a fantastic little invention, and it's called a tailgate table. And if you got a little backpacking chair, it is just ideally suited for a tailgate table. But great place to cook food, to sit down, eat dinner, drink a beer, read a book, sit down and do your work, Not very expensive, a pretty relatively cheap item. We, you find a lot of cubbies to hold different things, and just fill them all up. But we generally carry our tool bag right here. I have it out right now because we were, doing some general maintenance and work. Roof racks, check out eBay and Craigslist, because we paid $75 for a fully functional used roof rack and haven't had any problems with it. Hell of a deal. But we got this roof rack as well. Got shovel mounted on the side. When you're out in the wild, you want to have a toilet, especially if you have dogs, because dogs eat some pretty nasty stuff. It's good to have a shovel. And it also will help you dig out in cases of, getting stuck or whatnot. Also important is a high lift jack. A high lift jack will get you out of some pretty bad spots. And we've used it several times in some pretty bad spots. But an important tool. We also went ahead and bought a winch bumper. We have not yet gotten a winch installed, but we do plan to do so in the future at some point. We don't run solar on the roof, although one day we might. So I just carry a small little solar panel to carry, to recharge small electrical devices. It, generally helps quite a bit. On this side we have an axe mounted, and that's a wood splitting axe, so it makes life easier. It's a little heavier to swing, but also good exercise. Got a fuel tank, spare fuel. Got to have spare fuel. Can't reiterate that enough. Spare fuel is incredibly important. My desktop computer actually slides right in here between the front seat and the back seat. And basically I put the screen to the front seat and then just shove all those jackets behind it, so it keeps it in there nice and firm and tight, so it's not vibrating a lot and it's not getting scratched up. We do have a 10-gallon rooftop solar heated shower, which is exceptionally nice to have, unless it's really friggin' cold day, and then it just gets a little cool out. But we currently, for power, because we do power a lot of things when we're parked, and we recharge tools, things like portable drills that we carry with us, and a portable sawzall, which is one of the best investments I've ever made, because sometimes you need to cut off body panels, or other things. Cut wood, make fires, things of that nature. We have a lot of people spend a lot of money building beds, and storage areas. And I think this bed, the total, all the lumber maybe cost me, $20, $25, but we just went with 2x4s in the truck's natural side supports. I'm not sure what exactly they call them, and then we measured out how much we needed it up so that we could get our storage bins underneath and cut some little side slats, but not a very expensive setup. But back to power. We're running a 2,000 watt inverter on this side, and then we run a smaller inverter on that side. Both of the inverters are connected to a deep cycle marine battery, which we run back here. The deep cycle marine battery is charged from a battery isolator, and basically a battery isolator simply, it'll charge two batteries but not allow one to drain the other. And so when you're using power, when you're stopped, and if you don't have a battery isolator, you run the risk of depleting your main drive battery as well, and that could cause you problems. On that side up front over there, we carry, we've got a lot of camping equipment, tent, a backpack, other things we might need if you want to strike out on foot and go explore some this beautiful world in which we live. We also carry a milk crate right there that in the milk crate is, fluids that you might need, engine oil, transmission fluid, anything like that, when shit goes wrong, because I gotta tell you, shit will go wrong. You need that kind of stuff. But we went ahead and we set it up so that we could access that area simply by pulling this mattress out a little bit and moving this forward. And we can also lift this one a little bit, but we're not going to do that. Got a spare, little cigarette lighter port that I use back here, and I primarily use that to, charge my road shower with compressed air and air up and air down my tires when we need to, when we're in, deep sand or mud. Storage devices. You don't have to spend a ton of money building some crazy whack drawer, and a whole bunch of storage areas. We went and bought these little $6 bins at, Ace Hardware or wherever. And so this is my dresser. I've got one for clothes. And I know you see my dishes back there in my stove, but we were thinking about cooking a meal here real quick. This one's my kitchen. We got cutting boards, we got bowls, we got a backpacking stove. We've got a spatula, we've got a can opener, different items, that you might need as you're traveling the road. This one here, oh my God, excuse me. This one is just for, other shit. Got some spare brakes in here. I love this. My son Javier gave it to me. Actually, a really good idea. It's a, sometimes when you're using your high lift jack, you're in sand or you're in some unstable soil for some reason. And basically what this does, it acts as a platform for your jack so that it gives it more stability and, your vehicle's not falling over as you're trying to jack it up. But we also, this is where we carry our Sawzall. And so, they are the portable, so you've got the charging devices that come with them, and you just plug them into your inverter, charge them up. Might be good to have a spare battery as well. That way when one battery dies, you can keep using your tool. And so, this is just our basic setup. It doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. It's our air compressor. Also important is a battery charger or a jump box, whatever they call them. They, sometimes you're going to wake up with a dead battery, and it's nice to be able to not have to call the tow truck because you got a dead battery. We just bought a cheap air compressor. A lot of people spend thousands of dollars installing these crazy internal air compressors. And, I've learned that I actually had to leave a rig in Brazil, and I love that truck. And, I am so glad I didn't buy a $1,000+ internal air compressor. And, yep, so, a basic tool bag, sockets, wrenches, things of that nature. It's a little heater there. And we do have a dry goods box for, sundries like peanut butter and canned food. And I have carried a French press from the top of the world to the bottom and back and all over all kinds of other places without a problem. And it's just nice to, be able to get up in the morning and make yourself a cup of coffee. But, this is our setup. It's not whack crazy expensive. It did not cost us a lot of money to build. And, we got lighting, so I can sit out under on my little patio over there and, read a book at night or, just do whatever. Up top, one last thing I'm going to show you. Well, not one last thing, because I just remembered something else, but it's a canvas up top that I can unbungee and roll out. And basically, if you're in the tropics or, God forbid, you're stuck in a nasty 2-week storm in Georgia or Florida, and you're living in your rig, and, especially if you're stopped somewhere for a period of time, it's nice to be able to roll that tarp out. The orange posts I had in the back, behind the back seats, they come right out at about here, and then you've got a rear patio. And so it also folds over the top of this awning so that it gives you a little walkway sort of between, the door to your bedroom and your living room, I suppose. We'll name them that. And so A nice futon bed. I love this futon bed. It is exceptionally comfortable, and it wasn't a bank breaker. A couple other items, I neglected. You've got one thing you gotta have, because I've used it, is a fire extinguisher. And ironically, one day we're driving down a trail, and this taught me that where you mount your fire extinguisher is critically important, because one day, suddenly, just poof, and the entire cab of the truck is white. And, we had to try to gingerly pull over as, safely as we could when we couldn't see. And I found that my dog had pulled the pin and set off the fire extinguisher, the smart little fucker. Not sure why I'd do that. Another thing I did that I learned very quickly is that when you get in the elements, and especially if you have dogs that want to go back and forth between the front and the back, that you have to, sort of do something to insulate between them. And, they don't really make anything any good anymore. They stopped making them, really, because they all suck. And so I went out and I got some of that, and I need to push that one back up again, but what that is it's pipe insulation. So I got pipe insulation. I shoved a whole bunch of it all the way around, top, bottom, sides, and I used this duct tape. And what that does is it allows us to get air conditioning from the front to the back. And because if you have to close all the windows between the cab and the topper, and your dogs are in the back, then they're not going to get the air conditioning they need or the heat they need during a rainstorm or something else that'll help you get water back in your mattress, and then you're highly uncomfortable again. And nobody likes to be uncomfortable, but this is our rig. We think it's a beautiful thing, and we absolutely love it. So yeah, if anybody ever has any questions, everybody wants any advice, we are always free and open to talk. Yep. No, and one last thing real quick. You should always have some good reading material and some headlamps, especially when you're walking to the toilet with your shovel at night. And, with that, I'll say peace out.